Germany, Berlin. My phone buzzed. I never dealt with personal messages during meetings, yet this time, as if compelled by some force, I opened it. Sis, help me. For a moment I was back to my father's absurd call 3 days ago. Victoria, you have another sister out there. A switched-out birth story, of all things, happening in my family? My gaze swept over the acquisition team across the negotiation table as they read the clauses aloud, and I suddenly recalled the risk I'd discovered earlier. The biotech company's qualification report contained undisclosed particulars. The gamble was too great. In an instant, I decided to walk away. Miss Victoria, the assistant confirmed softly, checking the progress. I stood up and, to the stunned faces around me, said, terminate the negotiations. You handle the wrap-up. Book me the next available flight. 2 hours later, I boarded the plane and looked at the family surveillance summary the nanny had sent. My biological sister shoved into the storage room, the foster sister's clumsy framing, my parents' cold, biased eyes. I slowly put my phone away. Good. Haven't shown my teeth in a while, and the 2 idiots who could have gone to the museum have given me another performance. By the time the plane landed in Jiangqing, the assistant had all the information ready. Miss Victoria, it's verified. The second young lady now goes by Evelyn. The woman who took her, Judy, has no links to the Qin family, but her cousin Shirley is precisely the madam's close friend. I sneered. I was 10 when mother gave birth to my younger sister. I witnessed the whole thing, watched her being carefully tended in the special care ward at Qin's hospital. How could the baby have been accidentally swapped? It was clearly a malicious switch. The convoy drove into the villa compound. Through the car window I saw a small figure surrounded by several nannies, fishing for something by the drain. She wore the St. Sakura Middle School uniform, but it didn't fit at all. The side zipper was torn and hastily stitched with thread, and there were suspicious stains on the skirt. One glance and I could tell what had happened to her. The driver looked at my face and honked. Everyone in the yard froze instantly. The young miss is back, the assistant announced. Only then did they seem to hit play, trembling as they fell into line at the door. I stepped in, kicked off my heels, and slipped into slippers. The assistants and the legal team occupied the living room in silence. Evelyn huddled at the far end like a frightened quail. Pearl had lost her usual arrogance, her eyes were anxious. Whenever I came home before, she would always be the first to pounce on me and act spoiled. Pearl, I said, my gaze sweeping over her slightly swollen face, explain yourself. She instinctively fiddled with her fingers, that was her little tick when she lied. I accidentally took my sister's milk, had an allergic reaction, only then did I find out it had peanut powder in it. This morning I also noticed the diamond was missing from the hairpin you gave me, so I was fishing around. Her voice grew quieter and quieter. I looked at Evelyn. What do you say? I never knew peanuts could be ground into powder and eaten. I didn't even know she was allergic. The girl lifted her chin, struggling like a small animal in dire straits. Her room has its own bathroom, but the hairpin was on the communal sink. When I saw it, it was already bare. I stared at Pearl again. Think carefully before you answer. Did someone hurt you, or did you misremember? Her face went deathly pale. She stammered, maybe. I remembered it wrong. I stopped looking at her. As I turned, the legal team had already connected the projector. Everyone, come over. The projector cast a clear surveillance image onto the living room's white wall. In the footage, the Judas were being led out of their hotel room by the police. Mother cried out in alarm, aren't those Evelyn's foster parents? Is a criminal suspect. The legal officer corrected calmly, Judy is suspected of having switched babies at Qin Hospital 16 years ago. Leo is suspected of long-term abuse of minors and has now been formally arrested. The mother's face went instantly ashen. Did you hear that? I don't want to hear the words foster parents again. The father tried to smooth things over, all right, don't mention it. Victoria, you've been on the plane so long you must be tired. What would you like to eat? Not yet. I cut him off, turning my gaze to Evelyn in the corner. What should she be called? Father hurriedly handed over the document. Luna. The parentage report is here. Register her as soon as possible. I'll take her to the old house to see grandfather later. I set down the parentage report and looked at Mother. I heard she went to St. Sakura Academy. Under what identity? Mother stammered and couldn't answer. I crossed my legs. I want to know how my sister was taken. Besides those two traffickers, who else was involved? My mother began to tremble. Not saying, so it's you? My voice went icy. Seems Uncle's been living a little too well. It's Shirley. My mother blurted out. Luna's 1-month celebration, she invited me to the mall. I don't know how it happened, she took the wrong baby. And? Judy is Shirley's cousin on her mother's side. Mother's voice was barely audible. An organized group crime. I gave the final word, looking at the legal counsel. Prosecute to the fullest extent possible. Shirley vehemently denies it. Judy has taken the blame. They really haven't been in contact these years. Gathering evidence will take time. I looked at my assistant. Which department does Shirley's husband work in again? Get him in. Yes. In less than 10 minutes, Shirley's pleading call reached my mother's phone. I put it on speaker. Aunt Shirley, I said calmly, bankruptcy and losing your family, then going to prison, or turning yourself in and going to prison, make your choice. After I spoke, I hung up and blocked her. My mother clutched the phone, tears falling onto the screen. You still have the nerve to cry? I laughed softly. My sister suffered for 16 years because of you, and you feel no remorse. You still act like the Empress at home, playing at palace intrigue and making a laughingstock of us. Leaning slightly forward, I stared at the instant pallor that washed over her face. I invested millions for Uncle, without earning a single coin. I did it just to make you happy. And you? You lived so well for so long you forgot where you came from. My gaze was like a blade, cutting across my parents' faces and pearls one by one. If I don't come back, are you planning to roll out the red carpet for those two traffickers and write them a check, thanking them for torturing Luna for 16 years? My parents shrank back in terror. Pearl collapsed to the floor with a thud, crying like rain. Sister, it's all my fault. You are at fault, I said, my expression unchanged but every word aimed to wound. You are one of the beneficiaries of this swap. Seeing Pearl's eyes grow increasingly hopeless, I changed my tone. But, after 16 years as sisters, I can't help but care for you. Pearl jerked her head up, eyes bursting with the exhilaration of someone who has survived a disaster. Sister, you still want to keep me? Of course, Chin's family's pampered blossom would wither if sent out into the world. I bent closer, my fingertip lightly lifting her chin. You will always be the Chin family's precious pearl. So stop playing those shabby little games. Luna is not your enemy, she's another member of the family, alright? Pearl instantly went soft, like a cat whose fur has been smoothed, nodding repeatedly. She turned and apologized to Luna with earnestness. Sister Luna, I'm sorry. It was my fault these past few days. I was just so anxious, afraid of being driven away. Really, Mom and Dad, Sister Luna didn't do anything wrong, I was the one who framed her. Being the parents' favorite, how could they blame her? They would only feel more protective. It's okay, don't cry, nobody's angry with you. Luna kept her head down, her fists clenched. Luna will live next to me, I said. The whole room was stunned. The villa has 3 floors, the top floor has the best view, an aerial garden, and you can see the mountains and the river. Before, I lived there alone, and family members weren't allowed up without permission. My parents, seeing that I wouldn't hold it against them, were overjoyed and hurriedly agreed, all right, we'll tidy it up right away. I only then looked at Luna. Come on, come with me to the old house. Without an assistant, just the 2 of us. We'd barely gotten into the car when we got a call from legal. Shirley had already turned herself in, admitting she'd acted out of jealousy toward Mom becoming a socialite and harbored ill intentions. Besides stealing the baby, she's been borrowing money from my mom without repaying, swapping jewelry and bags. Legal, we can press charges for fraud and theft. She's already been detained, and her husband is drafting the divorce papers. All right. After hanging up, see? When you're in a high position and ask for a result, someone will naturally make it happen for you. Now, those who harmed you have been punished. Luna clutched a pillow and sobbed out loud. I parked the car by the river. It was so vast and boundless, flowing from ancient times, who knew how many stories it had witnessed. Luna pushed open the door, ran to the water's edge, picked up a pebble and hurled it hard into the water. I sat on the steps, waited until she had finished venting, then asked, "Did you make me keep Pearl out of spite? She stole 16 years of my life. These past few days she's been bullying me, and Mom and Dad are biased. I can't possibly win." Luna's pent-up grievance finally burst. I shook my head. There will be no fight, I promise. But that Lee family's golden boy is such a piece of shit. If Pearl goes back she'll surely be wasted. I've been her sister all these years, I can't bear it. Like I told her, you two can coexist. Luna stood there stunned. The Lee family is a pit of fire. Pearl is a flawless pearl fallen into the dust. Pearl is naturally kind and couldn't bear it either, but what about the suffering she's endured? I understand all of that. I wasn't born the Chin household's eldest miss either. I endured no fewer hardships than she did as a child. I held out my hand to her. Luna, do you trust your sister? I've looked into your past. That couple treated you poorly, but many people helped you, too. That's why you're resilient, an outstanding student, a trumpet vine blossoming out of adversity, just like me. So, I like you. I like you the most. The blunt praise made Luna a little bashful. She slowly raised her hand and clasped mine tightly. If Pearl is the princess, then you are the imperial daughter, like me, an heir. My expectation for you is the stars and the sea. The mighty Yangtze surged behind us. She looked into my eyes, and in them were mirrored the lanterns on the river and also my ambition. At this moment, the starlight in her eyes had already been lit for me. I am the lady of the Chin family, a sister. How could I be mediocre, behaving like a fool vying for a sibling's favor? All right, but sister must love me the most. Absolutely. Got in the car. Luna casually picked up the financial magazine on the seat. The cover showed my profile. Victoria, entered Tsinghua and Peking at 16, at 26 at the helm of a 100 billion empire, 10 years, the Chin family's perfect transformation. Her eyes lit up as she flipped to the inside pages, took over Chin Corporation at 18, went to the US for an MBA at Stanford at 20, at 21 led Chin Corporation into a technological transformation. At 24 made the Forbes Asia Business Leaders list, at 26 named an outstanding young representative of the nation. Sis, you're amazing. She looked at me with admiration and kept turning the pages. A sprawling feature article titled The Chin Empire, from a century-old pharmacy to a tech giant's cross-industry path unfolded before her. Its century-old Chin pharmaceutical factory and food factory are household names. 10 years ago it decisively sold off its real estate company and fully moved into new fields. It successively invested in social platforms, intelligent technology, and new energy vehicles, and in 10 years its market value leapt from tens of billions to hundreds of billions. Her breathing grew noticeably rapid, until she read the fine print, Group Total Assets, 137.2 billion, and drew a sharp breath. Now you should understand, I said, watching the rearview mirror and meeting her stunned gaze. You didn't return to a bird's cozy nest. You returned to a sky where eagles battle. So, broaden your vision. In the old house's study, Grandpa was practicing his calligraphy. Grandpa. I entered with Luna. This is Luna. The old man set down his brush and regarded her with eyes like torches. Luna's fingers tightened with nerves, but she still kept her back straight. That face, it's obviously one of our children, Grandpa nodded. Add her to the family register. I looked at the newly added Luna, the ink still wet. From today on, you are officially the Cheen family's second Mississippi. I handed the family register to her. Remember the weight of this? She nodded heavily, her eyes reddening. I stepped forward and hugged her gently. Welcome home. Luna cried tears of joy. Grandpa handed her a black card outright. Grandma gave her a box of jewelry. She hugged them happily to her chest. On the ride back, she said solemnly, Sister, I've decided, I want to be like you, to become the pride of the Cheen family. You've made up your mind? This path will be very hard. I have. Her eyes were resolute. I want to be worthy of the name Luna. I curled my lips in satisfied amusement. This is my victorious sister. The Cheen family heir had many subjects to master. Luna chose the hardest. Business cases, financial statements, legal statutes, business etiquette, and also boxing and sanda, everything I had learned, she left nothing out. Once I saw her struggling with the cutlery, awkwardly holding the knife and fork. Etiquette is flexible, I said, taking the knife and fork from her and slicing casually. A queen who eats steak with chopsticks is praised as down-to-earth, nobles sipping wine from a goblet are mocked as pretentious. My movements were smooth and effortless, not what the etiquette teacher had taught, but who would dare say it was wrong? More important than formalities is making your fist powerful. Her eyes lit up. She really was still a child, a few words of guidance and her spirits were rekindled. She was busy studying, and I was busy working. The CEO in the novel spent his days in romance. In reality, I worked year-round with no days off. What else was I but a beast of burden? When Luna found she couldn't catch me at home, she simply started coming to the office to do her homework after school. Gradually, I got used to having someone with me when I left work each day. The meeting ended early that day. I grabbed the car keys. What do you want to eat? KFC, she said, pointing at the sign across the street. When I was little I only ever saw it in TV commercials. As her older sister, this small wish had to be granted. She happily ordered a whole tableful. I only got a cup of coffee. Not happy at school? No. She sucked on her cola, her cheeks puffed out. Then why do you always come keep me company when I work overtime, but can't make friends? Pearl introduced me to a lot of people, it's just that we don't have much in common. When she picked up the 5th pair of chicken wings, I gently stopped the plate. 17, it's time to manage your figure. Shall we run back together? All right, she obediently packed them up. Actually, it's not as tasty as what the home chef makes, but we can't waste it. A good habit. In the night breeze we jogged along the riverbank. The streetlights stretched our shadows and then shrank them, like two trees growing side by side. The next morning, I woke to laughter downstairs. My cousin Chloe hopped up to Luna and said, You must be cousin Luna. I'm Chloe, I just transferred to St. Sakura to go to school with you starting today. I had arranged a study companion for Luna on purpose. A cousin from uncle's side, 2 months younger than you, very familiar with St. Sakura. On the surface Chloe was obedient, but privately she whispered in Luna's ear, No wonder she can't get along with Pearl. Turns out she's a wild one. If my eldest cousin hadn't forbidden spreading it around, I would have ripped her face to shreds ages ago. Except for the moment Luna lost her composure when she first returned, Pearl had since recovered. The Cheen children's upbringing was never in question. She felt guilty toward Luna and had been doing her best to help her fit into the socialite circle, but Luna's ambitions lay elsewhere, and with heavy coursework she simply didn't share the same social sphere, which made outsiders assume their relationship was poor and sparked all sorts of speculation. Pearl's biological parents were truly unbearable. Afraid of the impact on her reputation, I issued a gag order within the Cheen family forbidding any discussion of the true or fake heiress. Outsiders naturally remained none the wiser. Chloe was quick-tongued, but knew her limits. At most she grumbled at home. Pearl is my sister, don't say that. Luna's tone was firm. When stirring things up failed, Chloe went back to talking about the Cheen family's past. Luna had always been curious. Father didn't work at Cheen Corporation, he ran a tiny factory of his own and relied on my support, so he couldn't hold his head high. It's a long story. Grandfather had two sons. The eldest was devoted to medicine and didn't want to go into business, so grandfather and grandmother poured all their hopes into father, arranging his betrothal early to the Lin family's daughter. The Lin family not only owned several pharmaceutical mountains, but also the country's largest chain of pharmacies. It should have been a beautiful union of two powers. Who could have imagined that while Miss Lin was studying abroad, my father and my mother were secretly seeing each other? As the wedding approached, my mother, heavily pregnant, came to their door and nearly destroyed the Qin family's century-old reputation. Grandfather and grandmother personally went to the Lin household to pour tea and apologize, and they expelled my father from the family. After my mother gave birth to me in a rented room, she paid me no heed. My father fell into ruin. I was raised by my disabled grandmother, often hungry, having to collect bottles to make ends meet. Only at 10 was I taken back into the Qin household. Luna listened until her eyes grew wet. I only gave a faint smile. So, I have long said how alike we sisters are. I felt every chill and warmth beside my kin. She fought to survive at the hands of villains. My parents' only help was to have me born earlier, making me the Qin family's eldest granddaughter. Fortunately, I was clever and eager to learn, and even at a young age I showed a knack for business. That was why Grandpa designated me as the heir. Eldest uncle's household had no objection whatsoever. My two male cousins treated me with great respect, so I never felt the need to guard myself against them. On the contrary, I looked forward to them growing up quickly and joining me in leading the Qin family to new glory. On Monday morning I drove them to Sacred Cherry High School myself. Chloe bobbed her head excitedly. Don't worry, cousin, I'll make sure everyone knows that cousin Luna is the true second miss. Enough. I glanced at her. Your job is to help Luna get used to school and study well. In the rearview mirror, Luna gazed quietly out the window. She was wearing Saint Sakura's custom uniform today. Her straightened spine already showed the bearing of a Qin family daughter. When the car stopped at the school gates, it was the height of the morning rush. Many students recognized my car and clustered around. I lowered the window and said softly to Luna, the driver will pick you up after school. If anything comes up, call me directly. She nodded heavily, her eyes resolute. Chloe had already hopped out of the car, diving into St. Sakura Middle School like a lively fish into a pond. I'm Chloe, I'm back. She grabbed shoulders as she went. Look closely, Luna is my dear cousin. If anyone spreads the rumor that she's a bastard, I'll rip their mouth off. Cousin was frail as a child. A master said she must be raised outside to escape calamity. Now her merit is complete. When she turns 18, the Qin family will hold the grandest coming-of-age ritual for her. Aren't you all rushing to ingratiate yourselves? She was good at spinning tales, and the effect was immediate. That afternoon Luna came to the office to find me and casually brought up something from school. I saw Tom, she said. I put down my pen. You found out? Luna shrugged. My cousin tells me everything. True, I hadn't planned to hide it. If none of the switching had happened, Tom should have been her fiancé. He was a handsome, gentlemanly youth, very popular with girls his age. By a twist of fate, he and Pearl became childhood sweethearts, and the two families had long since reached an understanding. Now their feelings were deep, nothing need change. The Qin and Lin families had a bit of a melodramatic history. The Lin family was the family of Dad's former fiancée, Amelia. After the fallout back then, the engagement was carried over to the next generation to preserve a century-old friendship between the families. Your engagement will fall on Pearl. Do you like him? Absolutely not. Luna waved her hands repeatedly. They actually make a pretty good match. I chuckled and shook my head. We're off tomorrow, I'll take you to see the show. The best part was tailing Tom in the car with her. Watching him spend the morning taking Pearl to an art exhibition, then have lunch at my place with my mother, rush off to celebrate the birthday of the little sister who had been kidnapped as a child and whom he had accidentally saved, spend the afternoon performing a four-hand piano duet with his junior, and in the evening go deliver support to a sponsored poor student. Well? I asked her. Luna was in awe. I have to learn time management from him, what a master. Back then, Grandpa and Grandma, to win the Lin family's forgiveness, not only apologized and made amends but also acknowledged Amelia as their daughter. When she married, they gave 5% of the conglomerate's shares as her dowry, which were returned only after the marriage contract was fulfilled. The Lin family of this generation has only one son, so the Qin family will surely have a daughter marry into them. I don't want it to be you, understand? Luna was blunt. If Tom were her fiancé, they'd probably be fighting every day. Pearl was different. There are things she might know but pretends not to hear. Either way, they're still young, we'll deal with it later. Got it, got it, got it. Luna felt a little guilty toward Pearl. After that, she focused single-mindedly on her studies. She heard that Tom had been kidnapped when he was little, and added an extra hour to his daily boxing practice. It was summer, he sweated every day from training, and even developed biceps. Chloe took up fencing. She came home sore and limp, and saw that Pearl was also taking classes, flower arranging, tea ceremony, ballet, guzheng, those were all pretty classes. Both of them were very envious, but there was nothing to be done. They had tried those things too, they just didn't have that flair. Just as Pearl couldn't get into numbers, she did have a real gift for aesthetics, and by sharing her daily life she had gained hundreds of thousands of followers. Chloe said sourly that she was born to be a vase. Not angry, she replied, so what? Even if I'm a vase, I'm a priceless blue and white porcelain. That's true, she posts videos every day of arranging flowers, dancing, and practicing piano, and has gained hundreds of thousands of followers. That day, I gave them a day off. I hired professional dancers to perform Swan Lake at the house, had a tea master use antique tea ware to present the tea ceremony, and finally invited several luxury brands to bring their seasonal collections so the girls could pick whatever they wanted. Girls raised in luxury should, of course, keep up with taste and refinement. On the last 3 days of summer vacation, I took Luna to the airport. She looked up excitedly and asked me, London or Paris? I've never been on a plane before. I gently smoothed the hair the wind had mussed and said softly, no rush to see the world. First we're going back to Qingyang County. We should go thank in person the people who helped you when you were in trouble. She froze for a moment and tears instantly brimmed in her eyes. Thank you, sister. The plane landed in Lancheng. The branch manager had been waiting for some time. On the way, I told her that Qin's company had several traditional Chinese medicine processing plants here. I come to inspect every year. When she said this, a slight bitterness pricked my heart. I had never imagined that, in some corner of these mountains, my sister who had been scattered outside could be hidden. So, does Qingyang County have one too? She asked softly, her eyes hopeful. It didn't before. I tightened my grip on her hand, but now, it does. When we actually stood on that yellow earth, looking at the plan for the Qin Group Qingshi County Medicinal Herb Industry Base, and listened to the county magistrate passionately explain how 300 million in investment would be turned into roads, schools, and an industrial chain, she finally understood the weight of the Qin Group. Old playmates gathered around, their sun-darkened little faces flushed with excitement. Evelyn, are you really the Qin heiress from the TV? Did you come back on a big plane? Yes, she answered loudly, then looked at them earnestly. Study hard, and one day you can take a plane and see the world. I stood on the ridge, watching her run through the fields like a bird let out of its cage. Just then, a figure suddenly emerged from the grass. It was Jackson. Luna instinctively took a defensive stance. He, however, looked as if he'd seen a ghost and turned and ran, not even bothering about the shoe he lost. A satisfied curl appeared at the corner of my mouth. Good, he knew his place, those beatings weren't in vain. He bullied my sister, and I didn't break him. Consider me law-abiding. Luna saw him in such a sorry state and was completely relieved. As she was leaving, the old party secretary gripped her with hands as rough as tree bark, his voice choked, good child. She looked at the villagers before her, her eyes full of lofty pride. On the flight home, she fell asleep leaning against my shoulder. The assistant whispered, Miss Victoria, the second miss is acting more and more like you. I gently stroked her hair, thinking of that nearly signed project in Germany, my tone tinged with emotion. I feel she's my good luck. Last time in Germany, if it weren't for that text from her telling me to pause the signing, I might be the one in deep trouble now. The company we planned to acquire collapsed spectacularly some time ago, the investors lost everything, and it even led to deaths. She had her eyes closed, but I knew she heard me. Yes, I was paving the way for her, just as when I first entered the Qin household and my eldest uncle had paved the way for me. After the year turned, Luna grew a year older and her studies grew heavier. In addition to the original courses, a new subject was added, identifying the 100 herbs. This is the root of the Qin family, it must not be lost, Grandpa said to me, his words grave and earnest. Grandpa, I promised solemnly. The pharmaceutical company's profits were thin, R&D budgets remained sky-high, and losses continued, while my investments in other fields were bringing in tidy returns. Ever since I progressively gave up the real estate business a few years ago, the old man had been worried I would sell off or scale down the drug company too. Luna spoke up at the right moment, Grandfather, don't worry. I will study hard and one day make the Qin family pharmaceuticals flourish. Only then did the old man brighten, and he went on telling us old stories. Pearl had no talent at all for medicine and her academic performance was mediocre, but she was gifted in the arts. I took the opportunity to set up a personal image studio for her so she could focus on developing her socialite career. Uncle and Dad each made their living supplements, one producing hematinic syrup, the other hawking bird's nest beverages. Because I strictly vetted everything, the ingredients and formulas met the standards, so the prices were a little higher. Now that Pearl was endorsing them, business had surprisingly started to pick up. Chloe stopped muttering about her and instead treated her like royalty. In this household, everyone was working hard along their own path, and everything was flourishing. In early summer, the city smelled of herbs. Luna could already distinguish new mugwort from aged, southern from northern, with her eyes closed. The old master slapped the table in admiration, declaring her nose worthy of the ancestor himself chasing her to reward her with a bowl of rice. I had thought this calm would last longer, until Grandpa called a frantic late-night phone call, summoning us all back to the ancestral home. In the main hall sat a middle-aged man with red-rimmed eyes, the fifth-generation heir of Lee's Serpent Remedies, Michael. Although it was a small factory, their snake medicine and trauma ointments had a history even older than Qin's pharmacy. They were truly inherited formulas. He was an elder, and upon seeing me now he wiped his tears in grief. Victoria, you have to stand up for us. Michael's voice trembled with despair as he slammed a contract and a test report down on the tea table, as if he were using the last of his strength. They're not doing business, they're robbing us, digging up our roots. The day he spoke of was a Japanese-funded company called Dongha Pharmaceuticals. Their person in charge, Kotaro Onodera, several months earlier, claiming admiration for Chinese medicinal culture, had approached Michael with a humble smile and generous gifts. He showed great interest and sincerity toward the Lee family's century-old secret snake medicine formula, and ultimately issued an order of an astonishing sum, one so large the Lee family would have to sell everything to fulfill it. Our whole family and all the apprentices worked day and night for 3 months. Michael's tiger-like eyes brimmed with tears. But on the delivery day, that Kotaro Onodera turned on a dime. They independently tested the formula's aconite and said our toxicity exceeded standards, that it's a poisonous concoction meant to swindle and kill people. He grabbed his hair fiercely. They forced us, if we want the payment, for consumer safety we must disclose the entire formula and all preparation techniques. Miss Victoria, tell me, how is that any different from outright robbery? I fell silent and flipped through the contract and the test report, my fingertips skimming quickly across the tablet. The screen scrolled through Dongha Pharmaceuticals and the Black Sparrow Capital behind it, and their acquisition cases around the world, exactly the same playbook. Identify a target, bait with an order, make technical demands, smear them in public opinion, and finally seize the secret recipe at a low price or forcibly take it. People in traditional industries are too ingenuous, their understanding of capital operations is far from sufficient. As far as I know, there have been more than a dozen people defrauded in recent years. I set the tablet down, rage turning in my chest, but my tone was unusually calm. Mr. Michael, my Qing firm will take this batch. Michael froze, then hurriedly waved his hand. Miss Victoria, you can't. This is clearly a sinkhole. What they want isn't a breach of contract, it's the formula. I know. I cut him off, my voice decisive. But right now the most important thing is to save the Li name. It's not only your family legacy, it's a treasure passed down by traditional Chinese medicine. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down on the myriad lights of Jiangqing. From Zhonghua toothpaste to Vitality 28, from Little Nurse to Meijiajing, we've paid enough tuition. My fingertips tapped lightly on the window frame, the sound carrying an unquestionable finality. We cannot, and must not, let our own people stumble repeatedly on the same road. This matter, the Qing family will settle. As one of the leaders in the patent Chinese medicine industry, if not now, then when? Victoria. Grandfather's dragon-head cane came down with a heavy thud. In our day, the old generation of pharmacists carried medicinal herbs on shoulder poles to support the front and resist invasion. Now these devils have only changed their methods, what they do hasn't changed. You must not let them succeed. Grandfather liked watching Ip Man. His favorite line was, "A martial artist doing a lifetime of good is not as effective as lighting a single lamp." Traditional industries are like that. I bowed slightly. Don't worry, grandfather, I will. Eldest uncle and my brother Theo declared solemnly, the Qing family and the Li family are of one blood and branch, we will weather this crisis together. Luna and Pearl didn't understand business, but their shared indignation toward the marauders was identical. Pearl quietly squeezed Luna's hand, they're so bullying. Fall behind and you'll get beaten, study hard so you won't be deceived. The younger sister, who had always been content to be a decorative figure, saw the cruelty of corporate warfare for the first time. Me too. Luna nodded emphatically. The storm outside was far fiercer than anyone had imagined. News that the Qing family had taken over Viper medicine hit like a stone thrown into water. Dongha Pharmaceuticals and the capital it controlled bared their fangs and launched a long-planned media lynching. Overnight, shocking headlines like bombshell. "Where is the centuries-old conscience of the Qing family?" swept the internet. Countless paid commenters poured out, clinging to the words aconite is poisonous and exaggerating to the utmost. Qing Corporation's official site was instantly drowned in negative reviews, and the group's stock price plummeted in response. The green K-line tightened like a noose, coiling around Qing's neck. The lights on the top floor of headquarters stayed on all night. I mobilized every available liquid asset and engaged in a silent but brutal fight against the forces maliciously shorting us in the capital markets, doing everything I could to steady the board. My second brother Alex was roused and flew back, dust-streaked. "Sis, we're a real industry stock. If it can fall through 3 floors to the floor, nobody's going to believe there's no foul play." "What exactly is your plan? How are we going to strike back?" I lifted my head, my eyes were rimmed with blood, and the thermos had long been refilled with thick goji berry tea. Not in a hurry, I had anticipated all this long ago. After all, the little bullet nation knows only so much, always the same 3 tricks. Let the bullets fly a while longer. When they've all jumped about enough, we'll toss a bomb into this murky water. Then whose backside is bare will be obvious at a glance. PFF, second brother laughed, exhaling in relief, "Fine, as long as you have a plan." I was worried you'd run into a cash flow crunch, so I put aside some euros, dollars, and petroleum coins for emergencies. I lightly wagged a finger, "It's not money I lack, I'm merely taking the opportunity to clear the house." The strategy meeting room was cold with menace. "Legal, lawyers' letters and the indictment? All set. PR, every traffic channel under our umbrella? Top-tier resources, standing by at a moment's notice." At the same time, all official Qing family accounts released a unified announcement, "Tonight at 1800 hours, Shanghai live broadcast. With science, correct the public's perception, ask heaven to distinguish loyal from treacherous." At 17:30 in the afternoon, the Shanghai Live platform's homepage was completely overtaken by Qin Group's livestream teaser. Major streaming platforms carried the broadcast simultaneously, and mainstream media scrambled to give Qin the best promotional slots. While netizens marveled at Qin's display of power, a closer look revealed, these platforms were all backed by Qin's investments. The title of angel investor was well-deserved. The online audience in Qin's official livestream room shot past tens of millions at a terrifying speed and kept climbing. Against a black background, a line of white text hung like a challenge, with science, correct the public's perception. 1800 hours sharp. Protecting our shared memory began on schedule. This warm, weighty promotional film cleverly avoided directly addressing the toxicity controversy, instead reviewing a century of Qin family's trials and achievements, from supplying medicines in the early days of the People's Republic to the altruistic donation of emptied warehouses during SARS and the pandemic. The final shot froze on a state-secret formula certificate, while the gilded banners of intangible cultural heritage inheritance and time-honored Chinese brand glittered brilliantly. The nation's memory was instantly stirred. The comment section filled with spontaneous voices of support. I grew up taking Qin's medicines. They emptied their warehouses to donate during the pandemic. I trust the state's certification. At the end of the promotional film, the color grading shifts to nostalgia. The camera pushes in on a yellowed copy of the People's Daily. The front page headline is clearly legible. The Qin Pharmacy's righteous deed. Mr. Qin delivers medicine late at night, rescuing our wounded from peril. The date is faintly discernible as from the Liberation War period. My off-screen narration sounds steady. Many ask why the Qin family insisted on preserving these old time-honored shops. Because this enterprise was never founded for profit, but to honor an ancestor's last wish. The image cuts to a rubbing of the Qin family precept, seek only that the people of the world be free of illness, why fear the dust that settles on the cabinets? Qin's pharmacy began in the Republic era. My great-grandfather Reginald Huiron, in those years of raging war, lived by this precept. He once risked his life to deliver medicine to the front lines at night, refusing any payment. He also opened storehouses to distribute grain, aiding compatriots in distress. After the founding of the new China, my grandfather was among the first to complete the public-private cooperation, dedicating Qin's pharmaceutical factory to the nation's development. He said, matters of state are paramount, serve the country, serve the people. Qin's medicines must be made for the health of all under heaven. Times change. Although the Qin family has returned to running the business, that original resolve has never wavered. To protect the Qin name is not only to safeguard a century-old emblem, but also to preserve an unforgettable red memory and a pledge of service to the nation passed down through generations. Many know only of Qin Pharmaceuticals, but few realize its predecessor, Qin Pharmacy Hall, was recorded in the history books as a red backbone. When the promotional film ends, I step into frame. The data and reports have all been released. I look straight at the camera. But to those who bear ill intent, the truth is merely a stumbling block. I turn sideways, my arm steady as I point to the venomous snakes inside the blast-proof glass case. Today, skipping all pointless arguments, we will use the most direct method to test the truth. I directly issued a challenge. Dongha Pharmaceuticals, Kotaro Onodera, listen up. I, Victoria, hereby swear, if this medicine is useless, I will thank heaven and earth with my life. If this medicine works, then you, take your conspiracies and schemes and get out of China. And publicly apologize for everything you've done to our time-honored Chinese brand. The entire internet held its breath at that moment. The comment stream went blank in an instant. I resolutely extended my arm. The camera moved in close. The close-up of the snake fang piercing presented the faint pft and the swiftly spreading redness and swelling with unbearable realism. Michael's 90-year-old grandfather, Dr. Li, solemnly presented the snake medicine. I tilted my head back and swallowed it without a trace of hesitation. That's Victoria. The prodigy who entered Qingbei at 16 and at 26 commands a 100 billion group, a business legend. The Victoria who donated empty warehouses during the pandemic and walked into danger for love. A nationally certified outstanding young entrepreneur, who pushed her into live streaming a gamble with her life. How could it come to this? How could it come to this? Miss Victoria, we believe whatever you say. Don't do this, use the serum now. As I swallowed the drug, half the screen switched to an animal behavior expert, who used diagrams to explain quickly. Everyone, after a venomous snakebite, the first thing is to get out of danger, the second is to try to remember the snake's appearance, the third is to rinse immediately with clean water, and if possible, immobilize the limb closer to the heart, but be sure not to suck the wound with your mouth. The most crucial thing is, call 911 immediately, right away. The Lee family's antivenom is meant to buy you that golden rescue time. I felt a little dizzy, but forced myself to stay steady, not to lose composure on camera. The lens was locked tight on my arm, time slipping away as millions held their breath. 5 minutes, the redness stopped spreading. 15 minutes, the swelling began to subside. 25 minutes, the arm was mostly restored. 30 minutes later, under the high-powered magnifier, I showed an arm with only 2 small wounds. Facing the camera, I said clearly, "Witnesses, I, Victoria, am conscious and feel no discomfort. Lee family snake medicine is safe and effective. Black Sparrow Capital, Dongha Group, you should know that the Lee family's formula is the wisdom left by our ancestors. The herbs used absorb the spirit of the rivers and mountains of China. It is not something your capital can measure, nor something you can seize. Apologize immediately, or from today on, I, Victoria, will represent the Qin Group and Qin Herbs in opposition to you. We will never cooperate." Boom. The long-suppressed public opinion poured out like a mountain flood, erupting completely. The barrage of comments went utterly out of control in that instant. Row after row of company names stamped with golden V verification marks, like troops standing for inspection, swept across the entire livestream screen in majestic formation. This was no longer a product launch, it had become the unity rally of the Chinese national pharmaceutical industry. Under the call of irreconcilable, never to cooperate, all peers abandoned competition and coalesced into an unshakable force. One person's heroism turned, in an instant, into the roar of an entire industry. Yet this was not the climax. 1920, the nightly news. After the familiar opening theme, the camera lingers on a close-up of the plaque of Qin's old pharmacy. The anchor reports in a solemn, forceful voice, "Qin Group, with a history of 100 years, has always adhered to the founding intent of serving the nation through industry." The scene shifts to a modern production line. It is worth noting that in recent years some foreign capital institutions, leveraging advantages in capital and technology, have employed a series of unfair competitive methods targeting Chinese medicine enterprises that possess exclusive formulas. On the screen, several long-established Chinese brands that were once suppressed or even directly taken over by foreign capital are listed clearly: Chang'an Arc, Shisheng Herbs, Ziguan Chenji, etc. This list is only a portion, each has a real-world prototype. We must clearly recognize that protecting national brands is protecting economic sovereignty and cultural roots. The state firmly supports outstanding enterprises in defending their rights according to law, creating a fair market environment. Luna clung to my arm the whole time, her tears soaking my sleeve. When she heard I was going live to test the medicine, she cried and begged to go on stage in my place. I was moved, but I refused. She's still underage, and not famous enough. If we're going to do this, we must do it perfectly. To wear the crown, one must bear its weight. A century-old brand is an honor, but also a responsibility and duty. It's the inheritance of tradition, benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and faith. It's the most basic conscience and integrity required of everyone in this industry. Grandpa taught me this, and now I teach it to you. The government's official stance landed like a thunderclap, sounding the horn for the full-scale offensive. The slogan supporting national brands is patriotism instantly shot to the top of every trending list. Popular sentiment was thoroughly ignited. Netizens dug up Dongha Pharmaceuticals' dark history down to the last detail. A commercial dispute had, by this point, escalated into a nationwide cultural defense. Dongha Pharmaceutical was boycotted by the entire country and was effectively dead in China. The Qin family's reputation reached its peak, becoming the moral banner of the industry. For the next 3 months I published a weekly health report proving that the snake medicine was safe and effective. Lee's snake remedy sold out on the day of the livestream, machines humming day and night and still unable to meet demand. More importantly, many time-honored formulas, including Lee's, were rapidly classified as state secrets. From then on, no foreign wolves dared approach. Time passed, and Luna and Pearl's coming-of-age ceremony at 18 arrived as expected. I threw them a banquet that became the city's social event of the year. Under the spotlight, the two sisters shone in each other's reflected light, a lost gem from the vast sea at last revealing its brilliance, making Luna, Pearl shedding her superficiality to become a timeless blue and white porcelain. Fortunately, what was misplaced was only the beginning of the story, not their whole lives. Luna fell in love with traditional Chinese medicine and devoted herself to study. Pearl became an immensely influential aesthetics influencer, with tens of millions of fans and extraordinary selling power, lifting both her uncle and father to the peak of their careers. Chloe's dream came true, she became a second-generation rich, idolizing her. It was at this moment that the Lin family again solemnly proposed a marriage alliance. In fact, Pearl and Tom had already established a romantic relationship, and engagement was a foregone conclusion. But before I agreed, I still called her into my study and pushed a stack of documents toward her. Pearl, this alliance is only one way to reclaim the shares. You don't need to sacrifice your happiness for it. If you don't want it, I'll refuse outright, your sister will always be your support. To my surprise, after reading about Tom's philandering past, Pearl's face showed not the slightest ripple, she clearly already knew. Sis, I'm willing, she said, calm and resolute. An alliance with the Qin family is a promise our generations made. Father already made one mistake, we cannot make a second. The Qin family's reputation is more important than my personal preferences. Besides, he's handsome, gentle, and easy to handle, he's a very good husband material. She lifted her teacup with an elegant air, but what she said was earth-shattering. Sister, you don't really think I care whether Tom is faithful, do you? When I married was Mrs. Lin's status, the mother of the future heir to Lin Pharmaceuticals. Let him love whoever he wants, as long as it doesn't interfere with my shopping, buying bags, and being the legitimate wife. In the Qin family I was a princess, married into the Lin family I'm an empress, that's already a wonderful fate, why be greedy for more? As for the birds fluttering about outside. She let out a light laugh, tinged with disdain and detachment, who cares? Then she leaned in, hooked her arm through mine, and put on that familiar coquettish smile, yet what she said was perfectly clear-headed. But sister, there's one thing you absolutely must watch closely, whatever you do, don't let him sire an illegitimate child and split the inheritance. I don't know much about what's going on outside, so I'm counting on you. I looked at her, my heart a tumult of emotions. She hadn't been tamed, she had evolved, deliberately choosing the path that suited her best, making the most of herself within the rules. Okay. After graduating, Pearl and Tom held a grand wedding, and soon she gave birth to the Lin family heir. There was one thing we all misread. After marriage Tom surprisingly abandoned his old flirtatious ways and became utterly devoted. He's famous in the circle as a husband who spoils his wife. Those former female confidants were mostly hired into his company and became diligent employees. Word has it they're very loyal. I didn't dare relax and kept a close watch. But my second brother hit the nail on the head, don't worry. Men are like that sometimes, pathetically weak. Tom figured it out, Pearl only loves his money and status, she couldn't care less about him as a person, so he clung to her. Besides, he's the one who might try tricks. If I don't beat the truth out of him, then I'll call it a clean escape. Alright, that remark was crude, but it did have a point. Years later, Luna stunned everyone. The small molecule targeted anti-cancer drug based on traditional Chinese medicine that she led the development of burst onto the scene and won the Biomedical Award. As soon as the news broke, Qin family's stock price soared. Netizens commented sharply, the Qin family doesn't keep idlers, this is the most hardcore inheritance of family scholarship. On the night of the award ceremony she called me, her voice still trembling as if waking from a nightmare. Sis, I just had a dream, it was so terrifying. In the dream, she never sent that text. Although I didn't fall into the acquisition trap, I was drawn into a vicious corporate war and died unexpectedly. Sheen's pharmaceutical was seized. My eldest and second brothers struggled to hold things together but were powerless to turn the tide. She and Pearl were caught up in a fight over the true heiress, and Chloe even joined in, staging a three-woman scramble for a husband. That was truly a nightmare. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of the room, looking down over the realm we had built together. Dreams are always the opposite. You've already succeeded. Your sister will wait for you to come home. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then her voice choked with a smile. Yes, luckily, I made the right choice. Outside the window, Jiangqing's lights glittered like a Milky Way. The three of us sisters, each on her own path, had become the brightest lights of all.